Hello and welcome to EFRAG's October Financial Reporting Update podcast. I am Serge Vinogradov, Financial Reporting Senior Technical Manager specializing in financial instruments.
And I'm Aleksandra Sivash, Financial Reporting Senior Technical Manager, and today we will walk you through the main highlights of the last months, provide an update on the EFRAG meetings, open consultations, and upcoming events. For those of you who will listen to this update until the end, we will also announce one piece of good news. But first of all, we would like to talk about some hot topics of the moment. Serge, I know you had your first workshop dedicated to intangible assets just a few days ago. I remember we spoke about this project in detail in the September podcast. Could you please update us on the new developments in October and early November?
We have covered in the context of the Intangible Assets project in our September podcast. I will briefly remind you that one of the two principal work streams of the ISB at this stage aims at assessing user needs for information about recognized and unrecognized intangible assets and expenditure associated with them in the financial statements. In this context, we are conducting a series of online private workshops in November, which bring together users, EFRAG and ISB representatives to discuss specific intangibles, how they create value, and the information users need to understand. Several days ago, we had indeed the first workshop focused on software, artificial intelligence, data resources, algorithms, and digital platforms. 3 more workshops will follow later in November. The first of those 3 will deal with R&D, patents, and unpatented technology. The second one will address marketing and customer and supply-related intangibles like brands, trademarks, internet domains, customer lists, or relationships. And the third and last one will focus on intellectual property, copyrights, broadcast rights, and other intellectual property not covered in the other workshops.
Thank you for this update, Serge. And talking about users of financial statements, EFRAG is calling for candidates to join our user panel, inviting applications from investors, analysts, and other seasoned users of financial and sustainability information. This panel plays a key advisory role, providing guidance to EFRAG's Financial Reporting Technical Expert Group and Sustainability Reporting Technical Expert Group. Its members contribute to the development of high-quality financial reporting standards that meet the needs of capital providers across Europe. You can find all relevant information on the EFRAG's website. Now, turning back to the main events of the last months. On 17 October, we had a meeting with the Commission on Financial Reporting of the European Federation of Financial Analyst Societies, EFAS, which represents the views of users. The topics discussed included recent developments in corporate reporting in the EU, sustainability reporting, statement of cash flows, connectivity between sustainability and financial reporting, and intangible assets project. At this meeting, we collected feedback on user needs and an economy industry perspective.
Speaking about our meetings in October, we also had an EFRAG FR-Tech meeting on the 22nd, where most of the topics were related to financial instruments. The first topic discussed was the Dynamic Risk Management project. While waiting like everyone else for the exposure draft, which is due to be published by the ISB in December, we are also finalizing our report over the results of our survey, which covered the current dynamic interest rate risk management practices of banks, insurers, financial conglomerates, and other entities. The session at the EFRAG FR-Tech was dedicated to the final suggestion from members on this report, which we plan to publish shortly. The second topic was the financial instruments with characteristics of equity project, where members discussed the latest ISB's tentative decisions relating to the effects of relevant laws and regulations, reclassification, and shareholder discretion. The third topic was the amortized cost measurement project, where members discussed the latest ISB's developments and tentative decisions relating to effective interest rate at initial recognition, subsequent measurement of the effective interest rate, and modifications of financial instruments. In addition to these three topics, members also discussed EFRAG's cost-benefit assessment during the standard setting and the endorsement process.
Let's now move to the publications of the month. In October, EFRAG issued its final comment letter in response to the ESB's request for information on the post-implementation review of IFRS 16 leases. In our response, EFRAG noted that the standard is generally working well, especially for straightforward lease agreements, and has largely met its objective of improving lease-related financial reporting. However, EFRAG flagged potential areas for targeted improvements of the standard. It raised conceptual issues regarding the presentation and disclosure of cash flow information, and also highlighted application issues regarding whether some contracts fall within the scope of IFRS 16, particularly in relation to certain intangible assets, such as software license and cloud computing services, as well as the complexity of distinguishing between a lease and an in-substance purchase. Lastly, EFRAG pointed to some inconsistencies in the interactions between IFRS 16 and other IFRS accounting standards, specifically when distinguishing lease modifications under IFRS 16 from liability extinguishments under IFRS 9 financial statements, and in relation to the treatment of sale and leaseback transaction under IFRS 15, revenue from contracts with customers.
Talking about publications, I would like to remind our listeners that the consultation on IFRS 19 is still open and you can provide your comments. As you may remember from our previous podcasts, amendments to IFRS 19 complete the disclosure reductions and provide reduced disclosure requirements for new and amended IFRS issued between February 2021 and May 2024. EFRAG has issued its draft endorsement advice on the amendments to IFRS 19, and the preliminary conclusion is that these amendments meet all criteria for endorsement. The consultation on the draft endorsement advice is open for comments until the 28th of November.
To keep our promise about piece of good news at the end, let me update you on some recent developments in relation to the equity method of accounting and IFRS 18. If you remember, in our final comment letter on the exposure draft on revised ES 28 equity method, EFRAG raised concern about the fair value option included in current ES 28. As you know, IFRS 18 transition requirements allow entities to reassess this fair value option. Well, EFRAG highlighted that the text of the standard outlining the fair value option is not very clear and is subject to interpretation and diversity in practice, especially within the insurance industry. And this matter is very important with regard to IFRS 18 requirements, because it impacts the classification of related income and expenses in the statement of profit and loss. In October, the EFRAG Secretariat replied to the ESB on its request for information on the diversity in practice associated with the current ES 28 option. At its October meeting, the ESB decided to add a narrow scope project to its work plan. The project aims to explore whether the current fair value option could be made available to a broader scope of investments held by insurance entities. EFRAG will, of course, follow this project closely.
Thank you very much for this update, Aleksandra. It was a busy month here at EFRAG. Thank you to our listeners for their continued interest in financial reporting. Enjoy your day and stay tuned for our next podcast.